Hello and welcome to How2R. This is a video series where we're using R for our basic data analytics needs. And in this video, we're going to take a look at using the histogram, creating a histogram plot. So histograms are going to be used to show us the frequency distribution of a variable in our data frame. So what we're using here is we're using the ggplot method for creating plots. And this is different, a little bit more robust than the base R functions for creating plots. So I prefer to use ggplot. And since I have tidyverse loaded already, I have access to ggplot. So that's what I'm going to use here. So using my ggplot command, identifying the data frame where I'm pulling data from. And my aesthetic is going to be just here. We're just defining the variable that we want to plot. And this will be the x-axis of my plot is going to be the values from my profit field in my sales data frame. And keep in mind the frequency distribution, the y-axis is going to be the number of times that profit value appears in my data set. So that's why we don't need to identify the y variable. The next component, since there's another component to the command, I'm adding a plus sign, indicating that I want to create a histogram. And I want the histogram filled with steel blue as the color and an outline in black. Another component, I'm identifying my labels, giving it the plot title, the x-axis label, and the y-axis label. And then the final component is I'm identifying this as a simple format, so I want to use the minimal theme. So when I do a Control-Enter, I can see over here that I have a distribution of sales profit, and let me zoom this in here, click on the zoom button, and now I can make this larger, and we can see the distribution of the profit from negative 2,000 some to over 40,000. And we can see the number of instances for each of these values. And we can see that we're not having a different line for each value just because there's so many different profit values that's automatically bucketing these in what are called bins. And so what we have these grouped together in different bins, and we can see the distribution of those bins. Now, if we want to have a little bit more control over those bins, we can do that. We can modify the command so that in our the histogram part of our command, we're going to identify the bin width. So this is going to be group the frequencies in groups of 5,000. So every units of $5,000, it's going to have a different bin. So it's going to, rather than going with a default, what ggplot decides to show you, we can change that bin width so that we decide what the grouping should be in. Again, using the same colors, same labels, all the difference is going to be just different bins. And now we can see that the bins are a little bit wider here because we've identified them as in units of 5,000. Now we can modify that and say we want smaller bins. And so let's say we want to see this in units of 100. And if we do that, we can see that we have quite a bit more bins to look at now. There's quite a bit more bins in there than we were with our first plot. So we can modify the size of the bins. And then finally here, what we can do is we can indicate that we want to say that the unit of measure for our x-axis should be in dollars. So let's format that. So what we're going to do is we're going to provide a scale for that x-axis, and we want that to be in dollars. So the labels will be in dollars. So using that, we can format that to not just be as numbers, but rather units of currency. So Control-Enter. And we can see that we don't have the dollar function loaded. So what we actually need to do is we need to first load the scales library. And I had already installed scale, so I just need to load that library. And now with it loaded, now I can access that dollar function. Okay, zoom in. And there we go. So now we have the histogram of my distribution of sales profit, and we're indicating that these are units of currency. But I did need to load my scales library to be able to use that. That is not included in Tidyverse. All right, so that is looking at histograms, a couple examples of histograms where we can control the bin width, where we can also format the x-axis, but the y-axis is always going to be a count. That's in frequency then.